Guillaume, really happy to have you on the podcast today, man. As we're chatting before we start recording, I have like a million questions. So I guess we'll get right into it. Um, how did you get started and or get influenced by art? Was it something from an early age that your parents kind of passed along, or is happened something later in life?
Yeah, so I actually studied automated manufacturing engineering. So I come from an engineering background, but I also come from a family of artists. Both my mother and my grandmother actually were artists and teach and practice visual arts. But living off their art was an issue for them. And sadly, they were not able to do so. So they actually changed industry. They went into marketing, communication, and so on. And they were not able to live their passion in any way, shape, or form. And with my background in engineering, I was so aware of what was happening in the tech ecosystem. And in so many industries, it was all about the experience. But in the art industry, it was still all about going online. And I was asking myself so many times why it's only about going online when in 2020 or 2021 now, it's all about the experience. When you actually book a room on Airbnb, it's not only about booking a room. When you get there, you can actually meet the host, you can have a bottle of wine, and so on. And that's why we decided to tackle the art industry and to bring a little touch with an approach that was proper to us, which is an O2O approach, online to offline. So people cannot online be able to find artwork online, but in some cases also find them in the everyday life of their potential buyers. Gallea, what we decided to create is an online art gallery and a network of exhibiting venues, from coffee shops to restaurants to corporate offices and even hotels. And so, some cases you can have a large portfolio online, but the whole experience is all about seeing it in person.
Yeah, we're going to talk about Galley and have like a lot of questions about your startup and how you're looking to build it and grow because I find it's such a apropos positioning in terms of like especially today
Yeah.
where we're living in the pandemic. You said you studied manufacturing engineering, so I'm very curious as to like it seemed like you were always going to be an entrepreneur, having read your bio.
Yeah.
How'd you make that link to discovering, let's say, art as being the key idea that you've now dedicated the past four years of your life towards?
Yeah, so I was always aware of different industries around me, what was going on, and I remember one day I was with a friend and I was studying with an startup, an entrepreneur class at ETS, and we were in a coffee shop some day. It was a coffee shop one of my friend actually launched near Concordia University here in Montreal, and I remember seeing the blank walls, and I asked the guy, why not put artworks from local artists on your walls? It would put life, it would put something nice, and he told me, I don't know any artists and I don't have time to take care of it. And then I remember watching the other way of the street, and there were other restaurants, other coffee shops, and my friend and I were like, let's create something around it. Let's help artists find different venues and be the intermediary for them to actually have a platform where they can, yes, sell, but also apply, and for the venue to have an easy experience around that, so he can see all the selection, just select what he would like to put on his wall, and actually have the artworks on their wall. But it was not only about helping with the decoration, it was really about creating an experience, like I said. So, in order to have more and more artists being able to be featured on those walls, well, that's where we actually decided to have a rotation of the artworks every 4 months. So, every 4 months, the ambiance get refreshed. Artists still applied. We do a call for candidacy through the platform, and then the either the venue select by themselves, or if they want our expertise with our creation team, well, we can help them in the creation process as well and finding the best artworks for their wall.
Yeah, I love that Inception story, right? Where it's like you're in a coffee shop and then you
Yeah.
just get this idea. Do you remember which coffee shop? I studied Concordia. That's why I'm like, maybe I remember,
Yeah,
even though.
it was I think Leaves Cafe or Leaves House, something like that. Yeah.
Okay, okay, yeah.
Yeah.
Not, I guess it's you since, I studied there eight, and it feels like 20 years ago now.
Yeah.
Um, so then, okay, so did you finish your degree and then you started Galea? Like, so did you graduate before starting your startup?
Yes, so I did. I started I started Galea while I was still studying. I was in a, I remember having an entrepreneurship class, and for me, I always wanted to build my own company one day. I didn't know at what time and in what industry necessarily, but I was like, I want to learn more and more about this industry. And I was in so many Facebook groups in the entrepreneurship community here in Montreal, just to be, I was like eager for knowledge and just to see what was going on everywhere around me. And so through the entrepreneurship class, we did the pitch and everything, and started and worked on the business. I was doing way more research than all my fellow peers in class because I really actually wanted to launch a business out of it. And so that's why when I actually decided to take a semester off just to work on the business and figure things out on that level. At that point, I was with a friend, but he decided to step out and just work and continue working in engineering. So I was pretty much by myself. I had the great chance to find a fellow ETS engineer student that had a more of a web development background, and so he joined the team as a CTO, Samuel Belrose. So together we actually worked on creating the first version of the platform as it is today. And as right before starting Gallea, well, it was an idea at that point, more on the idea stage than everything else. Two of my friends actually won a trip to go in San Francisco and to visit there because it was like a contest with Air Canada or something. And they asked me, "Hey Guillaume, I know we're leaving in 2 days, but do you want to come with us?" And I said yes. So we actually went there. We rented a car. I remember us sleeping in like so some hotels, and in some cases even in the car. And it was just a fun experience to discover San Francisco. We went up to LA as well, and I remember visiting Airbnb offices. We went to GitHub offices. We had the opportunity to visit the whole office at GitHub, and it was just opening my mind to what the real tech ecosystem was. And then when I flew back to Montreal, my mind was set on creating the business and what I actually wanted to achieve in my professional life. Yeah.
It seems like a very formative trip. I want to go back to what you mentioned about like
Yeah.
you're curious, reading a lot, like taking that course.
Yeah.
What so far has been the most stark difference between, let's say, the theory and then the practice of like running it and actually building the startup?
Well, I think at the end of the day, you can learn and learn as much as you can, but if you don't live it, you can't really know exactly how it feels and how you can actually react to different kind of situations. Um, I can read thousands of pages on how to sell to potential customers, but actually picking up the phone and doing it is a whole another story. It's more on the emotional level than anything else. And actually going forward and be able to go through that process, well, I think I learned a lot. And we often say that an entrepreneur a year as an entrepreneur is like 10 years in the normal life because of the stress, the energy level, and so on that you actually go through. And I can say that it is pretty true. Yeah.
You started to get some white hair. I was going to
Yes.
say after 4 years, you're now 60 years old. Um, And like, let's dive into Galley because I saw you guys pitch at Founder Fuel. I love
Yeah.
the ideas before. Obviously, we were introduced by Kevin, so shout out to Kevin. Oh, sorry, Matt. Wrong person. So Matt, that made the intro. Wanted to know. So maybe explain the marketplace and how you guys connect.
Yes. So for us, it wasn't okay. So for Galea, it was really, really important to not only have a business model around a transaction, but have a whole ecosystem with the recurring revenues. So that's why we decided, when we actually did research about the art industry, we found out that usually traditional art galleries take around 50%, if not more, of a commission or transaction fee of the artwork sold. So at the end of the day, artists that pour their money and their soul into their art pieces actually get less in some cases than half of what they built. And
Is it just because? So sorry to interrupt.
yeah, no, go ahead.
Is it just because the art galleries control distribution, right? So you guys are offering a way to go direct to, let's say, the end customer here being mostly, let's say, retail or end consumers, whereas an art gallery, they're paying rent and they have four walls essentially, and
Yeah,
that's their value prop.
that's mostly their value prop. Uh, uh, and when we saw those numbers about the commission fees and so on, we decided to go forward and have and take a commission fee that was half of what is traditional industry. So we usually take from 25 to 30% of every artwork sold through the platform. And depending on what the artists want, well, we also have a freemium approach. So artists can sign up for free, And or if they want to go have more services and be able to actually apply and exhibit artworks in the everyday life of their potential buyers, well, they can then subscribe to our premium plans or pro plan. Same thing for venue. When we actually started Gallea, for us it was important to have an initial number of venues here in Montreal to just show the concept. But more and more that we were growing, we started to actually and we started to have more paying plans for venues as well, because we saw that in terms of services, in some cases they needed more. And now it's really a whole service that we can offer them. We can pick the artworks for them. We can hang the artworks for them, and they also get a commission fee on every artwork sold through their wall. So instead of actually having to pay a huge amount to buy artworks on every wall, they can pay a fee with us. Everything is insured. They get a commission fee on every artwork sold going through their wall. So it's a whole experience now that we actually provided. So just to go back to your question, instead of having a regular marketplace with only a transaction fee, in our case, it's yes, we have the transaction fee, but we also have recurring revenues coming from artists and from venues. So it's a triple-sided marketplace that isn't traditional in any industry really, but I think the more complex and the more challenging it is, well, the more it is complex for other players to actually come in industry. And like you said, instead of the only value prop of potential of existing traditional art galleries is having a brick and mortar, having four walls so artists can exhibit. But with Gallea, with the network of exhibiting venues that we have, we can transform a whole city into an art gallery. And instead of actually paying to do so, we are getting paid to do so. So that's the whole twist there. It's really the combination of having the online visibility and the offline experience. Yeah.
Interesting. Yeah. So you're bypassing the art galleries entirely, if I imagine. So an art
Yeah.
gallery is not going to be a potential player in that space. So I imagine you're trying to reinvent the model entirely, right? Um, have you thought of in connecting that triple-sided marketplace? What's Galea's role as a brand in the sense of like you want people to come to Galea first, or are you looking to maybe decentralize and sell your service as a platform where your brand is more in the background? So I'm not sure if I'm making myself clear, but I think you understand my question.
Yeah, I understand your question. I think in our case, it's really about creating a brand. We want Galea to be the forefront of the art industry someday. Right now, we are already the largest online art gallery in Canada, and it's only the beginning. And we are working really, really hard in this time of pandemic to actually have our offline distribution expanding as well. But I think we'll be able to talk a little bit further in the discussion about
Yeah, that's
our
interesting.
current challenges. But
Yeah, it's super interesting.
yeah,
I'm going to go back to challenges. I want to go back
yeah, go ahead.
to the end user, right? Because I find like for someone like myself that doesn't buy art regularly, can your model make it more accessible beyond the high net worth individuals, right? Where it's like, hey, I can have access to art and it rotates every X number of months, like you said. So
Mhm.
curious, do you think you'll be able to make it more accessible pour, how do you say, le commun des mortels?
Yeah. So because we are mostly online and we don't have a physical and we don't have a brick and mortar yet with the rent and so on, we can actually afford to sell lower price point artworks through the platform. And so the average artwork sold through the platform right now is around $800. So it's artworks that are not usually sold in traditional art galleries because they cannot afford to put the time and so to put the time and everything around it so it can be sold. So in our case, yes, I truly believe that we can democratize art, help fellow potential art buyers find the perfect artwork for their wall at the price of their choosing. We have artworks that start at $100 and we have up to 10,000 and even more. And as of right now, if I have the right numbers, I think we have more than 4,000 unique artists and 16,000 unique artworks. So we have a great variety of different art pieces in terms of style, price, size, theme, and so on. And actually, with the pandemic, I think we shifted the model and put way more energy through our online presence. and we can show the result, and we actually see the results in terms of numbers. We're now selling, I think, more than 10 times what we used to sell before the pandemic, and it's only the beginning. And I think in some cases it almost helped us because more and more people are actually at home seeing their wall every day now because they don't go to the office that often. And by seeing either an empty wall or a wall with an art piece that is a generic one that they bought to big box retailers, for example, well, now it's not the same thing. And we were asked, and we were receiving so many supports or questions from potential art buyers that they were hesitating between two art pieces and they didn't know which one to choose. And so that's why when we actually had a brilliant idea to launch a new service with Gallea that is called My Wall. Now, potential art buyers take a picture of their wall, add a few lines about what they are looking for, with the size, the price, and so on, and our curation team find artworks for you, actually take the picture of your wall and Photoshop 3 potential art pieces on it, and then send it back to you. And we are seeing a conversion rate that is amazing with that new service. I think it's more than 25% of artworks being sold through that process, and it's usually people that are way more willing to go forward and actually buy the artworks because they're willing to do these little extra steps. And because of that process, well, in some cases they're way more inclined to actually purchasing an artworks with a higher price point. So that's even better for either us and the artist as well. Yeah.
Yeah, I love that idea. I so love that. I'm thinking of doing that. It's like I have this big blank wall. It's like, oh, I kind of need an art, but I'm not good. I'm not like an expert about art at all. But I know that, something nice that would fit. So I might take you up on that. And I find it goes back to what you're saying, this whole notion of curation and experience. You guys are not in a transactional game, right? You're not like Amazon selling, like tissues. You're much more high price point, as you mentioned, $800. So you need to be able to mirror that with a digital experience. I really like that idea. In terms of metrics, like you mentioned, some of the growth. Like I remember when you guys were pitching a Firefly, you had like 10,000 artists. No, sorry, 1,500 artists and 10,000 artworks, and it seems like it's grown, as you mentioned. If you had one
Yeah.
metric you can track beyond obviously sales, what do you think is the most important
Mhm.
metric for you? Is it number of artists onboarded? Is it artworks? Is it venues? I'm curious as to how you think about it from a KPI perspective.
From a KPI perspective, if I would have to actually choose only one metric, I would go with the number of artists. At the end of the day, yes, we're selling artworks, but we are also helping artists from the visual art industry to actually be able to live their passion. And because we're doing so well, that's why we're putting that much energy in the artist signups on the platform. And after that, yes, it's a question of not only having users, but having active users through the platform on a monthly or weekly basis. Yes, but having an increase in terms of artists, not only here in Montreal, but all across the country and even all across the world now. We are seeing people signing up in Europe and Asia and so on. And it's just a question of how can we bring them more and more value and how can we help them in the process to sell artwork so they can actually be able to focus on what they like painting or doing digital art or actually taking professional photographies. At the end of the day, on Gallea, it's everything about 2D artwork, so everything that can go on the wall, so not only paintings. And so our main focus in terms of KPI is growing our user base in terms of artists on the platform.
Very nice. How
When we
important? Yeah.
go
Oh,
ahead,
sorry. Go
sorry.
ahead.
I just wanted to say that I remember before the pandemic, we used to have like maybe 30 new artists per month signing up to the platform, and now it's more than 800 new artists signing up per month. So we
Wow.
really saw an increase there, and it's only the beginning. With all the strategic partnerships that we're about to set in place, all the different projects as well that we're about to launch early next year, it will really have a great impact in terms of artist sign up, not only from local artists, but from everywhere.
Yeah, it's amazing. How important is SEO as a channel? Like as you're talking, it makes me think of a company you may be familiar with, Essence in Montreal.
Hmm.
One of the keys to their success, at least in the early days, was having really good SEO because they'd find all these niche designers that sell like $1,000 jeans. And when you would Google it, it would, Essence would show up. And so they create a lot of sales that way. I think it still is pretty much one of their most important channels. I imagine it's the case for you, right? You have like very, let's say, a long tail of obscure artists. Well, people looking for them. Well, you guys should rank number one, right? As a result. I'm just curious if it's something that you're already doing and taking advantage of.
Yes, it is something that we're already doing in terms of SEO for the platform as a whole. But what is really helping us as well is the fact that more than ever now, artists now get that they don't necessarily need to have a website, because with Gallea they can create an account for free, put list all their artworks, and can sell directly online. In some cases, when you actually type on Google the name of an artist, our platform shows up before his own. And so now we're seeing more and more artists actually use their Gallea account in their Instagram bio, for example, as their transactional platform. So that is so many little things here and there that actually help us growing and having more and more visitors on the platform that result in more art
Yeah.
buyers.
Asking them, all these artists on their social media handles, it's like instead of, in your bios link to Gallea, right? Like
Yeah.
that'd be a great way, on their Instagram, TikTok, or whatever. It's like, hey, you want to generate more traffic, and so I find it's like you guys are outsourcing like the business component for them, right? So it's like the
Yeah.
famous adage of a starving artist. You guys are helping build this platform where artists can generate more revenue for themselves. You guys obviously take a cut, but you're building this platform for them. So you outsource the whole business development side for it, which I find is really interesting.
Yes, and a quick little story about that that just reflect the value that we bring them is when it was Black Friday a few weeks ago, we actually had great discounts on the website, and that we took on all on our part of the commission. So it wasn't on the artist side, and some artists were so pleased about what we actually did that they told us that they were now paying Facebook ads for people to actually redirect on their Gallea account. So other artists paying ads for us, for people to actually discover their profile and then be able to see their artworks and buy them. So when our ecosystem of artists and so on are even, yes, they're paying on a monthly basis in some cases, but they are even willing to pay ads to gain more traction through the platform. That is just another way for or to show us that they truly care and see the value in what we actually bring them.
That's amazing. That's amazing. Like let's talk about investment. So you guys,
Yeah.
you said you're raising at 1.2 million, or you're going to start raising in January. I think that's what you announced at Founder Fuel. So use of funds, if you had to like describe, so like why take money? What is going to help you with?
Yeah, so usually startups after demo day fund of fuel, they usually announce that they are starting their fundraising process right after the show. In our case, we actually decided to take non-dilutive money at first to really work on our metric and be able to demonstrate the value that we are bringing, and take a few months before actually starting our fundraising process. So for us, we actually want to start the fundraising process at the end of January, and the use of the funds will mostly be in how can we actually continue scaling in our mind, the most important, how can we actually scale in different important cities here in Canada. So since demo day, we actually started developing Vancouver and Toronto as well. We have more than 500 artists in Toronto alone, and more than 300 in Vancouver, and we're already signing up our first venues in Vancouver. But for us, what the use of the fund will mostly be about having those three cities really locked up in terms of the artists, the venues, the revenue, and having and be able to actually demonstrate that the playbook that we already have and tried in Montreal that is working, well, demonstrate that it can also work in other geos elsewhere. And after that, the goal is really to have the same thing, but in a big city in the US. And so we can also demonstrate that it is possible to do it the same thing that we did here, and to adapt some things in another country before maybe going forward next or 18 months further, and then be able to have a way bigger round to scale the model all through the US. So yeah, that's really the so
Yeah.
building new geos. I think maybe also I think one of the mistake startup founders usually do is they tend to go for a lot of junior human resources, so having junior hires. And in our case, I would like with the use of that money to actually go towards hiring more senior people in the sales department. So I want to hire people with experience that can not only bring their experience but also teach our team how can we actually innovate in our sales pipeline process. How can we actually be able to be more willing and more to do more test driven and so on the tech side as well. So yeah, investing in more senior level resources, I think, would help us in a big way.
Yeah, I think it's a smart approach, right? It's all about the people, particularly early stage, the people that have been there. You don't want to
Yeah,
go too senior, right? You don't want like, a
yeah, yeah.
VP at Global Corp X, but you want someone that's maybe done it, a few times before, versus someone that's completely, green. Um, any other competitors, out of curiosity? Is there anyone else in the market doing exactly what you guys are doing, or is it more, let's say, adjacent type competitors?
We see online art galleries that are working with traditional galleries, so they tend to be a little bit more of a forefront for an online front for traditional galleries. We see other startups that are only selling online. That's pretty much what they concentrate on. It's pretty fine. It's fine like that. We have few initiatives in Canada or in Europe or in Australia that tend or try to do something like we do, but with the tech driven approach that we have, the tech platform that we actually built from scratch, that isn't a WordPress platform or anything. It's really built for us with the most innovative tools out there. And with the network of artists and the momentum that we have, I don't see them as competitors. No. So in terms of competitors, well, the art we have people that are solely focusing on either the offline or the online approach, and with the combination with the O2O approach like we do, yeah, we don't have many people doing what we're doing right now. So at the
Yeah, very
same
cool.
time, it's a burden, but it's also a question of how can we actually demonstrate that it's working, and how can we be the first to be out there to be the greatest of all time in that specific field.
Yeah, I love the fact it's niche, but it's a huge
Yeah,
market. I think I was reading some stats, like the traditional art market last year was 65 billion or something. That
it's huge potential.
it's
Yeah.
really big, right? So talking about the industry a little bit, since we're on the topic, what do you think are the most important trends that are occurring in the space right now? Like I'm thinking of one top of mind. We were talking about it before, like digital art, right? So like digital art, similar to the difference between analog, let's say like newspapers versus digital media. Well, digital media is better in almost every single way, but we still have analog art, right? So is digital art, is its time on its way, thus potentially threatening, your business, right? Where if people start, buying the art screens that are digital, that that could be traced to the original artist, that could be changed at any time, do you see that as a threat to your business long term? I'm just curious to hear you on it.
I don't see it as a threat. I think any in any way the industry is about to go, Galea will be there and we'll be able to innovate no matter what. So if this is really the way that the industry is about to move forward with, well, we will adapt our solution for our artists. How can we actually help them to have their artworks in a network of different screens all across the city, for example? That might be an approach, and we're not. And we are inclined to go that way if this is the way that the industry is about to go. I think one of the things that I'm also keeping an eye on in the industry is everything about augmented reality. Think that it's at the end of the day, it's all about the experience and what can we do a little bit more and the little few steps that we can bring to the potential art buyer so he can be a little bit more sure in the buying process. And so it's exactly what we did with my wall. So we can help people actually find the best characteristic for the ambience and then actually translate it into potential art pieces on the website. But also having the ability to find an artwork online, have your phone next to your wall and actually see the artwork on your wall prior to the purchase, well, that bring also a lot of value. And traditionally, in order to do so, people have or had to have a web. Je me reprends un peu là-dessus.
Vas-y, prends ton temps.
And traditionally, people used to have to actually download apps in order to be able to use augmented reality. But the more and more actually technology is evolving, well, now with the help of web apps, people are actually able to do so. So with Galea, maybe we might have a project incoming next year about augmented reality. Yeah.
Okay, interesting, interesting. Yeah, I'll have to have you on again to talk about AR. I find augmented reality is going to be, like you said, it's kind of the next step and natural conclusion, right? Towards like, to your point of, people snapping photos and sending them to you. Well, it's like here, just use our app, put them on, and then you could swipe through. It could probably be a little bit more accurate. You still have that curation, that human component that'll be still super important. Um, how do you describe the state of the industry as a whole? Like, is it like this is from the outside, right? I have no idea, but I would
Mhm.
imagine that most art galleries, most people working in the sector are still I want to say non-digital natives in the sense that the business models are still very traditional. The artists are probably way more advanced, like use of social media and tools. Maybe not super sophisticated business-wise, but that's, I guess, the case for
Mhm.
artists in general. So curious to hear you in terms of the dynamics in digital maturity.
When I started, like I said a little bit before, when I started Galea, the whole discussion in the art industry was all about going digital. And so I think there's a huge opportunity in not being only in the digital space for them, but also being a step forward in about the experience. So it's all about the loop and how can we provide more value to going online, more value about going offline, and so on. And well, but sorry, but can you repeat the question?
Sure.
I'm sorry.
The question was the digital maturity of the industry,
Yeah.
right? So like the art galleries, the
Mhm.
exhibitors, versus the maturity of the artists themselves. Like are people? You said there was a trend before of like
Mhm.
people using digital at the start. So I'm
Yeah.
curious, but like how far along that path are they? Where it's like you go, you visit an art gallery, you pay credit card, you walk away with the art piece.
Yeah.
That hasn't changed, right? Like you walk into an art gallery today, it's still the same thing as 1980, basically, right?
Still the same thing. Yeah, exactly. It's still the same thing. And I think one of the evolution that we saw in the industry in the past 10 years, for example, is artists are way more able to sell by themselves online through either social media or their own platform or their own website. But it take time, it take a luck in some cases as well, because in order to be able to find the perfect artist for you online, well, you have to go through so many at the same time. And so that's another something that we're also focusing on Galea is how can we actually use AI to be able to showcase the best artwork for you. And so when you actually come on the platform, you don't see 16,000 unique artworks that would fit your wall, but the best 30 or the best 40 that would actually be the best for the ambience at home. So it's all
Yeah,
about
yeah,
providing the value in that case. Yeah.
yeah. I love that aspect you mentioned, personalization, right? It's
Yeah.
so key. It's going to be, I think, kind of the future, right? It's going to be. I don't like, let's say, super abstract. I like more landscape. Again, I'm a rookie, so I have no idea if these, even categories make sense. But, like modern versus, anyways, I think you
And
get the point.
yeah, and one of the parallel like I often do is with the wine industry. So people don't know all the different cepage, but when they actually go to the SAQ here in Montreal, well, they get to know their wine palette, and then they can get some referrals based on that. And so for us, it's the same thing. People don't know everything about art, but how can we actually help people to be able to accept that they can get to like artworks? It's not only for an elite or for some people that actually have knowledge in the industry, it's really for the people. And at first, when I was asking questions around myself with friends and so on, people that were really not into art necessarily, they were telling me that in their mind, actually going for to visit a traditional art gallery was kind of a cold experience with white walls and no one talking and so on. And at the end of the day, art is all about emotion. It's something that the artist is trying to transcribe into an art piece that for potential art buyers that they will be able to see and feel. And so that was something that for us it was really really important to tackle and to well, to tackle.
Yeah, that was well said. I really like that. Art is about emotion.
Yeah.
Maybe one or two more questions for you. A favorite
Yeah, sure.
artist, like artist or upcoming artist that you like?
Yeah, so I think an artist on Galea that is really, really promising right now, and his artworks are going out like crazy, is Fat Surrender. So I'll be able to provide you with a link to his Galea account. But I remember when he first signed up, he had a ton of questions about how to actually sell online and so on. And now he's selling multiple art pieces per month. and I'm really proud to say that now he is mostly able to live of his art, and it's something that prior to Gallea, so many other artists were not able to. But now that we're selling multiple artworks a day, well, it's a whole ecosystem that we're building, and like you said, for us it's only the beginning. When we'll be able to have our fundraising done and completed, it will only be able to go on a bigger scale with better services for artists, for potential art buyers, and help venues transform, bring life to their wall. So
Yeah.
that's really the value that we're providing to this whole ecosystem. Yeah.
You're going to make a few millionaires, right, out of these artists. You're going to probably have a long tail distribution. You're going to have a few artists that are going to be making millions of dollars a year on your platform. And then you're going to have a long tail people, making, probably their salaries, like their income for the year. So you're going to have, just like how YouTube has really big stars, but then has this long tail of creators that's their job. They do YouTube videos all day. So you guys seem on that path to build the platform, the marketplace to do that as well.
Yeah, I think in the art market as a whole, for so much time, it has been about having some struggling artists, and a few little portion of them were able to actually make a great income. And with Gallea, what you're trying to establish in a way is how can we actually create a new middle class of artists that can actually live their passion and gain enough money out of it so they can pay rent, they can buy their art material at an affordable price, and then be able to just be happy about what they do on a monthly or daily basis. If it's part time, it's a full time, it's really up to them. But if I think a platform like Galea would have exist a few years ago, 10, 20, 30 years ago, well, my mother and my grandmother maybe could have live off their art and maybe would have been great artists because they're really, really truly amazing in what they do. And that's what we're trying to build here, helping other artists be able to make their art seen. Because at the end of the day, at Galea, we truly believe that art lives when it's seen.
Yeah, I think that's a great way to end it, Guillaume. I think with a good mic drop. Last question for you, Guillaume. Where can people reach out, connect with you, and learn more about Gallia?
Yeah, so galea.ca, if you have any question, the support is there to answer to you. We have, you can either find the artworks on your own or try the My Wall feature, like I said. If you have more question on a personal level, people can reach out to me, Guillaume Parent, on LinkedIn. If you have as well potential questions about our fundraising, about how much we're willing to raise and what we're about to do with the money and so on, don't hesitate to reach out. It will be a pleasure.
Guillaume, thank you so much, man.
Thank you very much. Have a good day.